Lieutenant Karen Miller was sitting at her station on the bridge of the Valkyrie when the signal came through. It was 3 a.m, and the ship was quiet. Most of the crew were sleeping. Karen had been watching the screens, checking for anything unusual in the empty space around them. Karen sat up straight and started working on her computer. She made the signal stronger, so she could hear it better. It was a distress call. Someone was in trouble and needed help. The voice on the other end sounded scared and desperate. Karen pressed the button for the ship-wide announcement system. "Captain Harper, to the bridge immediately," she said. Her voice was calm, but there was urgency in it. Something important was happening. Captain Daniel Harper arrived on the bridge very quickly. He was still putting on his uniform jacket as he walked in. Harper was 42 years old and had been commanding ships in space for 15 years. He had learned to read his crew well. When Karen used that tone of voice, it meant something serious was happening. "What do we have?" Harper asked as he walked over to Karen's station. Karen's fingers moved across the glowing screen in front of her. "Sir, there's a distress call from a Valerian transport ship. They're being attacked by Kresh raiders. They're about 40 light-years away from us. The signal is getting weaker." Harper leaned closer to look at the information on the screen. The Valerians were a peaceful species. They spent their time making art and thinking about philosophy. They never hurt anyone. Harper knew they couldn't defend themselves against attackers. The Kresh were different. They were raiders who stole from others and hurt innocent people. "How many ships are attacking them?" Harper asked. "At least 8 Kresh warships, sir. The Valerian ship says they have 53 people on board. 16 of them are children." Harper's face became hard. He had 2 children back home on Earth. The idea of children being hurt by pirates made him angry. "Sound the alarm. Get everyone to their battle stations. Plot a course to where they are. And contact Admiral Blake at headquarters." Lieutenant Commander Jack Morrison was at the weapons station. He spoke up. "Sir, that's 40 light-years away. We would be the only human ship there. The rules say we should wait for backup ships to arrive." Harper turned to look at Morrison. His eyes were determined. "Commander, there are children on that ship. If we wait for backup, those people will be dead. We're going now." The bridge went silent for a moment. Then Morrison smiled and nodded. "Yes, sir." Turning on all weapon systems. Within a few minutes, the entire crew was at their stations ready for battle. Admiral George Blake's face appeared on the big screen. He was back at Earth, commanding the human fleet from there. "Daniel, I see where you're planning to go," Blake said. He sounded worried. "You know you'll be fighting against more ships than you have, right? The Kresh aren't easy to fight." "With respect, sir, we're human," Harper said simply. "They're just pirates attacking civilians. We can handle them." Blake's worried expression changed to something that looked like pride. "I'm sending the Tempest and the Nighthawk to help you. They'll arrive about 6 hours after you. Try to stay alive until then, Captain." "We'll be fine, sir." Harper out. When the call ended, Karen looked up from her station. "Sir, we're ready to jump whenever you give the order. Also, the Valerian ship sent another message. They know we're coming. They're asking us not to fight the Kresh. They say the Kresh fleet is too strong, and they don't want us to die trying to save them." Harper sat down in his captain's chair. He thought about the Valerians begging them not to come. They were so scared that they didn't want anyone else to get hurt because of them. But that wasn't how humans did things. "Send them a message," Harper said. "Tell them that humans don't leave people behind when they call for help. Tell them we're coming, and the Kresh are about to learn what happens when they make humans angry. Start the jump." The ship's engines began to hum. The sound got louder and louder. Reality seemed to bend and twist around the ship. Then the Valkyrie disappeared from normal space. It was rushing through space faster than light, heading toward the battle. The Kresh didn't know what was coming for them. They didn't understand what humans really were. Most aliens in the galaxy came from nice, safe planets. Their worlds were peaceful and easy to live on. Earth was different. Earth was what scientists called a death world. Everything on Earth had tried to kill humans for millions of years. The gravity was stronger than on most planets. There were dangerous animals everywhere. Storms and earthquakes and volcanoes made life hard. Humans had survived all of it. They had become the strongest species on their planet by being tougher and smarter than everything else. Now humans were in space, traveling among the stars. Most aliens thought humans were just another species. They didn't understand that humans were survivors. They were fighters, and they had one rule that they never broke. When someone asked for help, humans came running. The Valkyrie came out of its jump in a flash of bright light. Immediately, all the sensors on the ship started collecting information. The situation was bad. It was even worse than the first reports had said. "I count 8 Kresh cruisers," Morrison called out from his station. "They've surrounded the Valerian transport ship. The transport's shields are almost gone. Only 12% left. They have holes in 3 different parts of their hull." Harper looked at the tactical display screen in front of him. The Kresh ships were big. They had lots of weapons on them. Against any other single ship in the galaxy, they would be an overwhelming force. But the Kresh had never fought humans before. They didn't know what was coming. "Lieutenant Sullivan, send a message on all frequencies," Harper ordered. "This is Captain Daniel Harper of the Terran vessel Valkyrie to Kresh forces. You have 30 seconds to stop your attack and leave this system, or we will open fire." The answer came back almost right away. The Kresh commander's voice was rough and angry. "Foolish humans. This is Kresh territory. You are 1 ship against 8. Leave now, or we will destroy you and add your ship to our collection." Harper smiled, but there was no humor in it. "Commander Morrison, they made their choice. All weapons are free to fire. Show them what happens when you threaten children." The Valkyrie's engines roared to full power. The ship moved forward so fast it would have killed the crew of any other species. Humans had evolved on Earth where the gravity was twice as strong as most other planets. What would crush other aliens just felt like hard acceleration to humans. The ship's special systems helped too, but they were designed for human bodies. Morrison's fingers moved quickly over his controls. Targeting the lead cruiser. Railgun systems locked on target. The Kresh fleet scattered, trying to use their numbers to surround the Valkyrie. But they moved slowly compared to the human ship. Harper's ship cut through their formation like a knife through soft butter. The Valkyrie's railguns fired first. These weapons used magnets to shoot pieces of metal at incredible speeds. The metal slugs flew through space almost as fast as light. The lead Kresh cruiser's shields lit up and then collapsed completely. The metal pieces punched through the hull like it was paper. The cruiser started leaking air into space. 1 target disabled, Morrison reported. "The Kresh fleet is trying to coordinate their fire. Don't let them," Harper ordered. "Pilot Cole, use evasive pattern Delta 7. Keep us moving." Lieutenant Peter Cole had his hands on the ship's controls. "Yes, sir. Everyone hold on tight." The Valkyrie twisted and rolled through space in ways that seemed impossible. Its advanced human-designed engines allowed it to make moves that alien engineers said couldn't be done. The Kresh fired their plasma weapons, but they hit nothing but empty space. The Valkyrie was always somewhere else by the time their shots arrived. At the same time, the Valkyrie's missile systems launched. Hundreds of small missiles spread out from the ship. Each one had its own target. The Kresh tried to shoot them down, but there were too many. Explosions lit up the darkness of space across the Kresh formation. 3 more cruisers heavily damaged, Morrison reported. His voice was tight with controlled aggression. "They're trying to regroup." "How is the Valarian ship?" Harper asked. He never took his eyes off the tactical display. Karen checked her sensors. "They've moved back toward some asteroids in the system. No new damage. They're sending constant transmissions, sir. They can't believe what they're seeing." The battle continued. It lasted 7 more minutes in total. The Kresh realized they were fighting something completely outside their experience. These weren't the slow, careful species they usually attacked. These were humans, and humans were different. The Kresh tried to run away. Harper wasn't going to let them go easily. "Disable their jump drives," he ordered. "I want them stuck here until our headquarters can send investigators. These pirates need to answer for what they've done." The Valkyrie's targeting systems locked onto the fleeing Kresh vessels. Precise beam weapons shot out from the ship. These were particle cannons that humans had developed. They were more powerful than anything most species thought possible. One by one, the weapons hit the Kresh ship's engines. The Kresh found themselves unable to escape. They were trapped. "All enemy vessels disabled, sir," Morrison reported. "We took no casualties, only minor damage to our shields." Harper let himself relax just a little bit. "Good work, everyone. Lieutenant Sullivan, contact the Valerian transport. And someone check on those Kresh ships. I need to know if they need life support before they run out of air." As the excitement of combat began to fade, the bridge crew realized what they had just done. A single human ship had stopped 8 enemy cruisers in less than 10 minutes. The ship had barely been damaged. It was a display of military power that would have seemed impossible to most species in the galaxy. The Valerian captain's face appeared on the screen. Harper could see the mix of gratitude and complete terror in the alien's large eyes. The Valerian's skin, which was normally a peaceful blue color, was pale with shock. "Captain Harper," the Valerian began. His voice was translated into English by the computer. "I am Captain Yevon of the merchant vessel Peaceful Dawn. We sent our distress call thinking maybe the Galactic Patrol would find our bodies later. We never imagined anyone would actually come. And certainly not just one ship. What you just did should be impossible." Harper leaned back in his chair. "Captain Yevon, you're welcome. We'll escort you to the nearest safe port." "Are your people hurt?" "Only small injuries, thanks to you," Yevon replied. "But Captain Harper, I must ask, how did you do this? Our sensors show you took almost no damage. Your ship moved in ways our scientists say breaks the laws of physics. Your weapons, your speed. We have never seen anything like this. What kind of species are you?" 1. Harper thought about his answer carefully. "We're humans, Captain. We come from a planet where everything tries to kill you, where staying alive means being fast." The news traveled fast. Within 2 days, every major government in the galaxy knew what had happened. They called it the Valerian Incident. Communication networks carried the story across thousands of light years. Everyone was talking about the humans and what they had done. On the Galactic Council's main station, Administrator Kelvin reviewed the combat data again. He had already looked at it 14 times, but he still couldn't believe what he was seeing. Around the council chamber, representatives from 23 different species sat in shocked silence. They were all looking at the same information. "This cannot be real," said Councillor Vresh. He was a Heptarian, and his species was known for having a strong military. "No single ship can move this fast. The crew inside would be crushed. Their bodies would be destroyed by the forces involved. The data has been checked by 17 different sources," Kelvin replied. His translator changed his clicking sounds into words everyone could understand. "The human ship moved at 90 meters per second squared during the fight. Their pilot made a turn at 73 times normal gravity. The chamber exploded with noise. Everyone was talking at once. Species that had been traveling in space for thousands of years found themselves facing something they couldn't understand. It didn't match anything they knew about physics or biology." "How is this possible?" Councillor Vresh demanded. "What technology do they have?" "It's not their technology," said a quiet voice from the back. Dr. Helen Grant stood up and walked to the center of the room. She was humanity's chief science representative to the council. She had been invited to explain what had happened, though she knew they wouldn't like her answers. "Members of the council," Helen began. What you saw wasn't advanced technology. It was biology. Humans evolved on a world where the gravity is about twice as strong as most inhabited planets. What you think would crush someone is just uncomfortable for us. Our bodies are built for it. Kelvin's eye stalks turned toward her. And your weapons? Your ship moved and fired with accuracy that our best computers couldn't match. Helen smiled a little. Captain Harper has reflexes that were shaped by 300,000 years of hunting dangerous animals and being hunted by them. His weapons officer grew up playing strategy games that simulate combat. His pilot trained by flying in Earth's atmosphere, where a mistake means death. They weren't depending on computers. They were thinking, adapting, and reacting faster than your automated systems. That's what we've always done to survive. Node. This is terrifying, Vresh said quietly. Are you saying every human can do this? To different degrees, yes. Captain Harper and his crew are military professionals. But even our civilians are stronger and faster than most galactic soldiers. Earth isn't just a death world. It's the worst death world. 95% of the species on our planet could kill most species in the galaxy. We survived by being better at staying alive than anything else. The council chamber became very quiet. Nobody spoke. They had welcomed humanity into the galactic community 30 years ago. They had seen humans as primitive people who would learn from the older civilizations. None of them had truly understood what it meant that humans came from a Class 12 hazardous world. That was the highest danger rating possible. What are humanity's plans now? Kelvin asked carefully. You've shown you could conquer most systems easily. 2. Helen's expression became hard. We came to space to explore, to learn, and to make friends. Captain Harper risked his ship and crew not to conquer anyone, but to save children he had never met. Children from a species he had only read about in books. That's who we are. We don't want to rule the galaxy. We want to protect it. Protect it from what? Vresh challenged. From exactly what happened at the Valarian incident. Pirates. Slavers. Bullies who hurt the weak. You've had the Galactic Patrol for 600 years, and they still couldn't answer a distress call in time. Another counselor, a being made of crystal who communicated with light, asked a question. And, if someone tries to stop you? Helen looked directly at the counselor. Then they'll learn the same lesson the Kresh learned. Humans protect their friends. All of their friends. And we're very good at it. All across the galaxy, different species reacted in different ways. The peaceful species, those who had suffered from pirate attacks for generations, started to see humanity differently. Before, they had seen young primitives who were new to space travel. Now, they saw potential guardians who might actually keep them safe. The aggressive species, those who had built empires by conquering others, started making quiet plans. Humanity was small. Their territory only covered a few star systems. But if one ship could do what the Valkyrie had done, what could humanity do if someone really threatened them? On Earth, Admiral Blake sat in his office at Terran Command. He was reading reports from all across human space. Since the Valarian incident, distress calls had increased by 400%. It wasn't because there were more emergencies. It was because species who had given up hope now believed someone might actually come to help them. His computer made a sound, and he answered the call from Fleet Admiral Patricia Cruz. She commanded all of Earth's defensive forces. George, have you seen the request list? Cruz asked immediately. I have. 43 requests for human ships to patrol trade routes. 17 requests for security escorts. 29 requests for human military advisors. And that's just this week. And, my 17. The Council is terrified of us, but everyone else wants us around, Cruz observed. We've accidentally become the galaxy's protectors. Blake rubbed his forehead. He was getting a headache. We need more ships. More crew members. We're already stretched too thin. 1A Jarmans. 1A Jarmans. Recruitment is up 500% since the incident, Cruz replied. Every young person who ever wanted to be a space marine is signing up. We'll have the people. The question is, are we ready for this responsibility? We don't have a choice, Blake said grimly. The galaxy has been lacking real protection for centuries. The Galactic Patrol is useless. They care more about paperwork than about saving lives. Someone has to step up. And that someone is us because we're from a planet that tried to kill us every day, so we're too stubborn to let anyone else die if we can help it. Cruz finished. Blake smiled slightly. That's the most honest mission statement I've heard all week. Make it official. Meanwhile, Captain Harper and the Valkyrie crew had become famous. People across human space wanted to talk to them. They had to do interviews and attend ceremonies. Everyone wanted to hear the story of the battle. For Harper, the attention was uncomfortable. He sat in his private office on the ship, reading a message from Captain Yevon. The Valerian had reached his homeworld safely. His government was starting official diplomatic relations with humanity. The 16 children who had been on his ship had made drawings for the Valkyrie crew. The pictures showed humans as heroes with wings and shields. 3 months had passed since the Valerian incident. The galaxy had changed in ways both big and small. The human fleet, which used to only defend Earth and its colonies, now had ships in 40 different sectors of space. They responded to distress calls constantly. The Kresh Empire had retreated to its home worlds. Its reputation was destroyed. The 8 ships that the Valkyrie had disabled gave up evidence of decades of crimes. They had records of raids, murders, and slave trading. The Galactic Council issued sanctions against the Kresh, but everyone knew the real punishment was the message humanity had sent. Predators who hurt civilians would face consequences. Commander Jack Morrison stood on the bridge of a new destroyer called the Resolute. He was watching a Galactic Council security force trying to board a suspected smuggling ship. The operation had been going on for 2 hours. It was slow and filled with careful procedure and diplomatic caution. The suspected smugglers knew galactic regulations. They simply refused to allow the inspection. "This is painful to watch," muttered Lieutenant Amy Sullivan from her station. "They know that ship is carrying illegal goods, and they're letting rules prevent them from doing anything about it." Morrison agreed but kept his face neutral. The Resolute was officially there as an observer. Humanity had accepted this role. Reluctantly. 3 human ships were now assigned to various galactic patrol fleets. The official reason was so humans could learn their methods. The real reason was that the Council wanted to keep an eye on humanity's growing influence. "Commander, we're receiving a priority transmission," Sullivan announced. "It's from the freighter they're trying to board. They're sending it on the human fleet emergency frequency." Morrison raised his eyebrows. "Put it through." The view screen changed to show not an alien but a human face. The man was in his 60s. His face was scarred and weathered. He wore the jumpsuit of a commercial space freighter captain. "This is Captain Ryan Fletcher of the independent freighter Odyssey Runner. The Galactic Patrol is detaining us on suspicion of smuggling. We're not smugglers. We're carrying refugees. We have 43 humans and 27 Valerians fleeing from the Kresh border. They're trying to send us back because we don't have proper paperwork. If they send these Valerians back, they'll be killed. I'm asking for help from any Terran vessel in range." Morrison made his decision in 3 seconds. "Sullivan, broadcast on the Galactic Patrol frequency. Tell them we're taking jurisdiction over the Odyssey Runner under Terran law. Legal department. Is that allowed?" Lieutenant Commander Lisa Webb, the ship's legal officer, checked her database. "Technically, yes. The captain is human. The ship is registered in Terran space. They've requested our help. It's a gray area in the law, but we can defend it." "Red. We. Do it," Morrison ordered. "And get me Captain Yara of the patrol fleet." The Galactic Patrol commander appeared on screen moments later. Her reptilian features showed clear annoyance. "Commander Morrison, you have no authority here. This vessel is suspected of violating trade regulations. 1. Captain Fletcher is a Terran citizen who has requested our help with refugees. That includes members of a species we protect, Morrison replied calmly. We're going to board that freighter, check the situation, and provide escort to Terran space if necessary. You cannot simply override Galactic Patrol Authority, Yara protested. Morrison's expression became hard. Captain, 43 humans and 27 Valerians are afraid for their lives. We're going to make sure they're safe. You can either accept this and maintain good relations with Earth, or you can try to stop us. I strongly recommend you accept it. Reckon W2. Reckon W2. We're Reckon W2. The standoff lasted 30 seconds. Then, Yara's image disappeared from the screen. Morrison knew she was talking with her superiors. They were weighing the political cost of conflict against the bureaucratic need to follow procedure. They're backing off, Sullivan reported. Patrol ships are withdrawing. Launch a shuttle, Morrison ordered. I'm going over there myself. And someone contact Terran Command. They'll want to know about this. On board the Odyssey runner, Captain Fletcher met Morrison at the airlock. Relief was clear on his weathered face. Behind him, the main cargo bay had been converted into temporary living quarters. Humans and Valerians, the latter looking thin and traumatized, watched the armed Terran Marines with hope in their eyes. Thank you for coming, Fletcher said quietly. Another hour, and they would have forced us to turn back. Morrison looked at the refugees. Tell me what happened. Creche raids on the border colonies, Fletcher explained. After Captain Harper made his statement, the Creche got desperate. They've been attacking civilian targets, taking whatever they can before your fleet arrives. These Valerians were from a farming colony. They escaped when I was in orbit trading. The humans are from the colony next door. We've been running ahead of the Creche fleet for 2 weeks. Why were you at the border? Morrison asked. Fletcher smiled grimly. Because someone needs to be there. The big corporations won't risk it anymore. But small operators like me know there are people who need supplies and evacuation routes. I've made 6 runs in the last month. Morrison studied the older captain. He saw determination, courage, and the kind of stubborn humanity that refused to abandon people in need. It was the same quality that had driven Captain Harper to fight 8 Creche cruisers. You did good work, Captain. We'll escort you to Terran space. These refugees will be processed and given asylum. And when you're ready to make another run, let Terran Command know. We'll provide a naval escort. Fletcher's eyes widened. You're serious? You'd assign military ships to escort civilian freighters? We're human, Morrison replied simply. We don't leave people behind. News of the incident spread quickly. It added another chapter to humanity's growing reputation. The Galactic Council issued a formal complaint about human vessels overriding patrol authority. Humanity's response, delivered by Ambassador George Mitchell, was brief and direct. When galactic law prioritizes procedure over protecting refugees fleeing genocide, we'll choose the refugees every time. The statement caused diplomatic problems. But it also had an unexpected effect. Within a week, 17 more species requested direct security agreements with Earth. They bypassed the Galactic Patrol entirely. The Council's authority, already questioned after the Valerian incident, began to break down. 1 year had passed since the Valerian incident. Captain Daniel Harper, now promoted to Admiral, stood on the observation deck of a newly built space station. The station was called Terran Defense Coordination Station. It was positioned at an important crossroads where many trade routes met. Harper watched as ships from 40 different species docked and departed. The station had become an unofficial hub for civilian vessels seeking protection and coordination. The Valkyrie had been retired 3 months earlier. It was replaced by newer, more advanced destroyers. Harper had been given command of the Second Response Fleet. This fleet had 16 ships dedicated to rapid response operations. He had spent the last year doing what humanity apparently did best: showing up when people called for help. Admiral, "We have an incoming delegation," announced Lieutenant Karen Miller. She had transferred with him to his new flagship, the Dauntless. "It's the Galactic Council. All 23 members." Sensa. Harper raised his eyebrows. "All of them? That's very unusual. Are we expecting trouble?" "Unknown, sir. They've requested a formal meeting. Ambassador Mitchell is already on his way to the station." Harper made his way to the diplomatic reception area. Ambassador Mitchell was already there, reviewing briefing materials. The ambassador looked up as Harper entered. "Daniel, or should I say Admiral Harper now?" Mitchell smiled. "Ready for another diplomatic adventure?" "I preferred fighting the Kresh," Harper admitted. "At least then, I knew what I was dealing with." Mitchell laughed. "You and me both. But this meeting could be important. The council hasn't met in full session outside their station in 70 years. The council members arrived in a fleet of diplomatic vessels. Their various forms required special accommodations. Harper and Mitchell met them in the station's large conference chamber. The room was designed to handle the different needs of multiple species. Administrator Kelvin spoke first. "Admiral Harper, Ambassador Mitchell, we come not with demands, but with a proposal. The events of this past year have made several things clear. The galaxy needs protection that the Galactic Patrol cannot provide. Humanity has shown both the capability and the willingness to offer such protection. We're honored by your confidence," Mitchell replied carefully. "But we're concerned about what you're proposing." Counselor Vresh stepped forward. "We propose a reformation of galactic security. Humanity would command a new organization. We would call it the Galactic Defense Initiative. You would have authority to respond to threats without needing council approval. You would have independence in military operations. Member species would support you with voluntary contributions." Harper exchanged a glance with Mitchell. "You're asking us to become the galaxy's official military force." "We're acknowledging what already exists," Kelvin replied. "In the past year, humanity has responded to over 400 distress calls. You've defeated pirate fleets. You've rescued refugees. You've prevented 3 attempted genocides. You've done this without asking for payment, territory, or political advantage. You've done it simply because it needed to be done, and because you frightened half the species in the galaxy," added a counselor whose species Harper didn't recognize. "We've reviewed Earth's history. You've fought each other in terrible wars. You've survived extinction-level events. You've adapted to conditions that would kill most species. You're the apex predators of the known galaxy, and you've chosen to use that capability to protect rather than conquer. That frightens some of you," Mitchell observed. "Yes," Kelvin agreed. "But it gives comfort to more of us. The alternative to human protection isn't peace. It's returning to a galaxy where might makes right, where species like the Valarians live in constant fear. We don't want that galaxy anymore." Harper thought about the proposal. In his year of operations, he had seen the reality of galactic civilization. Most species were peaceful. They focused on art, philosophy, and trade. They had no capacity or desire for violence. But that made them vulnerable to those few species who did embrace conflict. The Galactic Patrol, limited by bureaucracy and resources, couldn't protect them. "If we accept," Harper said slowly, "we would need guarantees. No interference in our operations. No political restrictions on who we protect. And we keep the right to refuse orders we consider wrong or unwise." "Agreed," Kelvin said immediately. "We want you precisely because you operate by your own moral code. We've seen that code in action. We trust it more than our own regulations." Mitchell leaned back in his chair. "I'll need to present this to our government. The Terran Senate will want assurances about costs, responsibilities, and limits to our commitment. We understand. But Ambassador, Admiral, please understand our position. The galaxy is changing. Your emergence has proven that peaceful civilization requires strong guardians. We would rather those guardians be humans, who choose to protect, than species who would choose to conquer. The meeting continued for 3 hours. They worked through details and backup plans. By the end, a framework had been established. It would need approval from Earth's government. Individual species would need to ratify it. But the foundation was laid. After the council members left, Harper and Mitchell sat alone in the conference chamber. "We're not ready for this," Harper said quietly. "We've been in space for less than a century. We're still learning how to deal with galactic politics, but we're ready for the important part." Mitchell replied, "We're ready to answer when someone calls for help. That's what this is really about. The rest is just paperwork." Harper looked out at the stars visible through the chamber's large windows. "A year ago, I was a ship captain, hoping to avoid trouble. Now we're proposing to become the guardians of galactic civilization. How did we get here? 3 years after the Valerian incident, the galaxy had transformed completely. The Galactic Defense Initiative had grown from 24 ships to over 100. Human vessels, along with allied support ships, maintained peace across dozens of sectors. The change was remarkable and undeniable. Piracy had declined by 70% across all monitored space lanes. Refugee crises were managed quickly and efficiently. 3 wars between rival species had been prevented before they could start. The GDI didn't win every battle or save every life, but their presence had fundamentally changed how the galaxy worked. Fleet Admiral Daniel Harper stood once again on the observation deck of the coordination station. The station had expanded 3 times since it was first built. It was now a massive structure, home to over 50,000 personnel from dozens of species. But humans still made up the core of its military operations. A young officer approached him. The officer looked nervous about interrupting the Admiral's quiet moment. "Admiral Harper?" "Sir, I apologize for interrupting, but I wanted to thank you." Harper turned around. "Thank me? For what?" "Lieutenant, for the Valerian incident, sir. I was in my first year of university when it happened. I was studying to be a teacher. After I saw what you did, how you helped people who had given up hope, I changed my path. I joined the fleet. I want to be part of this. Part of helping people." Harper smiled. "What's your name, Lieutenant?" "Christopher Cole, sir. I'm a pilot on the horizon, related to Peter Cole. He's my uncle, sir. He told me stories about the Valkyrie, about what it meant to be part of something bigger than yourself." Harper placed a hand on the young officer's shoulder. "We're not heroes, Lieutenant Cole. We're just people who show up when we're needed. The real heroes are people like Captain Yevon, who kept his ship together long enough for help to arrive, or Captain Fletcher, who risked everything to save refugees. We're just the people with the ships and the training." "That's what my uncle said too, sir. But if I may respectfully disagree, showing up is exactly what makes someone a hero. And humans always show up." After the lieutenant left, Harper thought about those words. Humans always show up. It was true. In 3 years, the GDI had responded to thousands of distress calls. Some were small, simple problems. Others were major crises. But every single time, humans came. The galaxy had learned something important about humanity. They had learned that humans were dangerous, yes. They were powerful. They were capable of incredible violence when necessary. But more importantly, they were reliable. When you called for help, humans answered. Every time. Without fail. Captain Yevon, the Valerian who had sent that first distress call, had become an ambassador for his people. He often visited the coordination station. Harper had dinner with him regularly. They had become friends over the years. "You know what the younglings on my world learn now?" Yevon asked during one of their dinners. "They learn that humans are the guardians of the galaxy. They draw pictures of human ships. They play games where they pretend to be human marines. You've become heroes to an entire generation." Harper felt uncomfortable with the praise. We just did what anyone should do. But no one else did, Yavin replied gently. For centuries, species like mine suffered. We sent distress calls into the void, hoping someone would care enough to help. Usually, no one came. Or they came too late. Then humans arrived in the galaxy, and suddenly, someone was listening. Someone was coming. You changed everything, Daniel. The transformation wasn't just military. Human culture had spread across the galaxy. Other species were fascinated by Earth. They wanted to understand how such a dangerous world had produced a species capable of such compassion. Human music, art, literature, and philosophy became popular across dozens of worlds, but there were also species that remained afraid. The more aggressive civilizations, those who had built their power on intimidation, watched humanity nervously. They had seen what one human ship could do. They understood that humanity's military capability far exceeded their small population. They worried about what would happen if humans ever decided to stop protecting and start conquering. Admiral Blake, now retired but still advising Terran Command, addressed these concerns in a speech that became famous across the galaxy. Some ask what humanity wants. They fear we're building an empire. The answer is simple. We want what we've always wanted. We want to explore. We want to learn. We want to live in peace. But we also want something else. We want a galaxy where no child has to be afraid. Where no civilian ship has to flee pirates. Where no species has to face genocide alone. That's what we want. And we're willing to fight for it. The speech was translated into hundreds of languages. It was broadcast across thousands of worlds. For the peaceful species, it was a promise of continued protection. For the aggressive species, it was a warning. The galaxy's balance of power had shifted, and there was no going back. Lieutenant Christopher Cole, the young pilot who had thanked Harper, found himself assigned to a mission 6 months after that conversation. His ship, the Horizon, received a distress call from a remote mining colony. Raiders were attacking. The colony had no defenses. Cole and his crew arrived within hours. They found 8 raider ships attacking the colony. The numbers were similar to what Harper had faced 3 years earlier. Cole thought about his uncle's stories. He thought about what it meant to be human in this galaxy. The battle lasted 12 minutes. The Horizon disabled all 8 raider ships without taking significant damage. The mining colony, home to 3 different species, was saved. The colonists sent messages of gratitude. Children sent drawings, just as the Valerian children had done years before. Cole realized something important that day. The Valerian incident hadn't been a one-time event. It had been the beginning of a new era. An era where humans served as protectors, where the survivors from Earth's harsh environment used their strength to defend those who couldn't defend themselves. Back on Earth, in schools and universities, young people studied galactic history. They learned about the time before the Valerian incident, when the galaxy was a dangerous place for peaceful species. They learned about Captain Harper's decision to answer that distress call. They learned about how one act of courage had changed everything. Many of them, like Christopher Cole, decided to join the fleet. They wanted to be part of the story. They wanted to show up when people needed help. Harper, now in his late 40s, sometimes thought about that night 3 years ago. The night when Karen Miller had called him to the bridge. The night when he had to decide whether to risk his ship and crew for strangers. He had made the only choice his conscience would allow. He had gone to help. He couldn't have known that his decision would reshape galactic civilization. He couldn't have predicted that humanity would become the guardians of the galaxy. He had just known that children were in danger, and he had the power to help them. That was the real story of humanity in the stars. Not that they were powerful, though they were. Not that they were dangerous, though they could be. The real story was simpler and more profound. Humans cared. When someone was in trouble, when someone called for help, humans came running. They didn't calculate odds. They didn't worry about profit. They just came. The galaxy had spent thousands of years waiting for someone to protect them. They had waited for someone strong enough to stand against the predators and kind enough to care about strangers. They had waited for guardians. And then humans had arrived from their death world, carrying with them all the strength and determination that came from surviving Earth's harsh environment. But they also carried something else: compassion, empathy, a stubborn refusal to let innocent people suffer if they could prevent it. The Deathworlders had become the guardians. And the galaxy, after its initial terror, had learned to be grateful. Across thousands of worlds, in hundreds of languages, species told their children the same story. The story of how humans heard a cry for help and came running. The story of how the survivors from Earth decided that their strength would be used to protect, not conquer. The story of how everything changed because someone answered a call. "We showed up," Mitchell said simply. "When Captain Yevon called for help, you came. When Captain Fletcher needed assistance, Commander Morrison came. When refugees flee genocide, we offer sanctuary. We keep showing up, and the galaxy has noticed." 6 months later, the Galactic Defense Initiative officially launched. Fleet Admiral Patricia Cruz became its first commander. The organization operated from the expanded Terran Defense Coordination Station. 24 human vessels formed its core fleet. They were supplemented by support ships from 12 allied species. The Galactic Patrol transitioned to a purely regulatory role. They handled customs, trade disputes, and minor infractions. The real security, the protection of civilian lives, and the response to genuine threats fell to the GDI. The initiative's charter was remarkably simple. It committed the GDI to 3 principles: respond to distress calls, protect civilian populations, oppose aggression regardless of the aggressor's political status. The galaxy had found its guardians, and those guardians were humans. The Deathworlders, who had chosen to protect the gentle species of the galaxy. The survivors who used their strength not to conquer, but to defend. The species who simply couldn't stand by and watch innocent people suffer. Everything had changed because one captain answered a distress call. Because humans believed that when someone asks for help, you go. No matter the cost, no matter the odds, you go because it's the right thing to do. In the Terran Senate on Earth, Senator Rachel Martin addressed the full assembly. "We're being pulled into a role we never asked for. We're becoming the galaxy's military force, its protectors, its enforcers. This comes with huge responsibility and risk. It also comes with necessity," responded Senator Carlos Hernandez. "For centuries, the galaxy has operated under a system where the strong prey on the weak. Bureaucracy prevents effective response. We can change that. We have the ability and the will." The debate went on for hours, but the outcome was never really in doubt. Humanity had seen suffering and had the power to stop it. When the choice was framed that way, it wasn't really a choice at all. Humans couldn't stand by and watch innocent people suffer. It wasn't in their nature. They were survivors from a death world, and they had decided to use their strength to protect those who couldn't protect themselves. Harper saved the drawings in his personal files, next to pictures of his own children. He didn't know it, but historians would study these images for generations. They marked the moment when humanity stopped being just another species in the galaxy and became something more. They became the protectors. They became the ones who came when others called for help. The galaxy would never be the same again. Stronger, and more determined than anything else around you. We're not the biggest species in the galaxy. We're not the oldest or the smartest. But when someone sends a distress call, when children are in danger, we come, and we don't stop until everyone is safe. The Valerian was quiet for a long time. The galaxy calls Earth a death world. I always thought it was just a science term, a way to classify planets. I understand now it means something much more important. It means we're survivors, Captain Yevon. Harper said. "And now, you're survivors too." The Valerian's eyes showed something that looked like wonder. In that moment, the galaxy changed. Word of what had happened would spread quickly. Everyone would hear about how one human ship had defeated 8 raiders. They would hear about how humans came to help when everyone else had given up hope. The age of humans protecting the galaxy had begun. The Valkyrie traveled through the strange space between normal space. Inside the ship, the crew prepared for battle. They checked their weapons. They made sure their systems were working. They got ready to fight against a force that had more ships than they did. Harper sat in his chair and thought about what was coming. 8 enemy ships against 1 human ship. Most species would think those were bad odds. But Harper knew better. The Kresh thought they were hunters. They thought they were dangerous. They were about to learn that humans were the real predators. Humans were from a world that made them strong. They were from a world that taught them to never give up. They were from a world that made them into something the galaxy had never seen before. The Kresh were attacking innocent people. They were hurting children. They had made a big mistake. They had gotten the attention of Earth. They had made humans angry, and angry humans were the most dangerous thing in the galaxy.